The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Fox Cities campus assists the City of Menasha with video recordings of city meetings. Menasha residents and interested parties can get information about city meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. To express opinions about City of Menasha issues or these broadcasts, contact the Mayor's office, 920-967-3608. Contact the City Alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Or complete the electronic feedback form on the City website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
In particular, this slide really is a real summary of, at a high level, exactly what WPPI concentrates on. Power supply is what we were created for. We quickly moved into providing services, which really has become a large piece of what we do. Frankly, our communities have more contact with us on a daily basis with respect to the services that we provide to you and your customers than they do with anything else that we provide. And then policy advocacy. We were created based on statute, and we are in a highly regulated industry, and so either it's state or federal regulation or legislation, we're actively involved, and we have staff that coordinates with the state associations and the National Association. I serve on the National Association's Board of Directors and get involved with policy issues as well. So policy is always a big part of what we do. All of this together is all about our mission of delivering reliable, low-cost electricity to benefit your communities. And you are the utility, and we are your support, helping you deliver on your mission of being that integrated into your city. That'll be my signal, so it'll work out well. So just for those of you, I know some of you are very familiar with WPPI, and I know we have two new council members, and I appreciate getting a chance to speak to you tonight. But just a little bit of background, we were formed in 1980. Prior to that time, municipal utilities had very limited options for power supply. They either owned their own generation, which typically was either a diesel generator. Some municipals had a small coal-fired power plant. Some were blessed with hydro facilities. But if you couldn't generate your own, you bought from the investor-owned utility that surrounded your city. You didn't really have access to transmission. Even if you could find power supply someplace else, you still had to deal with the incumbent investor-owned utility. And so really across the nation, a lot of municipal utilities were banding together in the mid to late 70s to form larger organizations with the thinking that through combining their demand, their power supply demand, they could gain economies of scale. They could become large enough to own bigger resources, enter into larger contracts, be able to negotiate, have more leverage negotiating with investor-owned utilities. And so in the late 70s, a group of municipal utilities came together, passed legislation in Wisconsin that allowed the creation of WPPI Energy. We initially started with 23 Wisconsin utilities. Today we have 51 members in 3 states. We have our 41. We've grown to 41 Wisconsin utilities. We have 7 members in the UP of Michigan, and we have 3 members in the state of Iowa. Collectively, the WPPI membership serve well over 200,000 customers. So it's a relatively decent sized utility that gives us the economies of scale to own larger resources, enter into larger purchase power agreements. No one individual member of WPPI would enter into the size of contracts that we're able to enter into. A good example is the Point Beach Solar that came online last September. It's a 100-megawatt solar farm. There's not a single member utility that would sign a contract for that size and scale. And so all of us members get the benefit of that scale, but only what they need based on their size of utility. This slide really tells the story of what we're challenged with right now, and that is market energy prices, which are predominantly driven by natural gas prices. Starting last summer, we started watching natural gas prices rise considerably month over month to levels that we really hadn't seen in many, many years. And when we started looking at the budget for 2022, we actually planned for higher than typical market energy prices in January, February, and March. If you look at the dark bar, you can see that we anticipated natural gas prices and market energy prices to come back down to what we had seen in years past. They went just the opposite. They literally have been double what we anticipated. And a lot of things are driving that. The war in Ukraine is driving it. Inflation is driving that. Coal resources coming out of the power supply mix, and the region depending more on natural gas, which drives up demand, which drives up price. We've had over 3,500 megawatts of coal-fired generation come offline in the last year. That puts more onto natural gas. And so we have seen that, and the results of that has been basically higher costs for our average power supply. If you can go to the next slide. Our average wholesale power cost, again, we focus on reliability, affordability, and responsible power supply mix. And we see this as a three-legged stool that we have to balance all of those things. Our costs prior to 2018, we were in the mid-70s. You can see 76, 75 there. In 2018, a couple of things changed that allowed us to bring our cost down to about $71, or about 7.1 cents from a kilowatt hour standpoint. The Tax Reform Act, which lowered the corporate income tax rate from 35% to 21%. We're not taxable, but we buy from investor-owned utilities that are taxable. ATC, which provides a lot of our transmission service, is a taxable entity, and so their rate includes income tax. And so when you took that income tax reduction and applied it to what we were paying for, it reduced our cost. We did a refinancing that year, which helped reduce our cost. Just like if you refinanced your home at a low interest rate compared to what you were paying, we were able to do that in 2018 as well. We were also able to end a higher than market energy cost contract that we had with an investor-owned utility that saved us about $17 million a year. And so all of that flowed through to reduce power costs. And we remained about, the low 70s through 2020. Then we started seeing the higher natural gas prices. We actually saw, as I said, starting in June of last year, natural gas prices really started to climb to double what we anticipated they would be from a budget standpoint. We ended the 2021 budget about 6% above what we are the 2021 budget, 6% above what we had budgeted. And our 2022 budget is pretty close. It's 75-35, so it's pretty close to what we budgeted for 2021. But I can tell you, again, you go back to that slide with the market energy prices, we are so much higher than what we had budgeted that is showing up in our average power cost. We're right now projecting we'll probably end the year about 10% above budget. Despite, the good news is we have a pretty diverse portfolio of power supply resources. So even though market energy prices are more than double, almost 2 times as high in some months, our average costs are only about 10% higher than what we had budgeted. So our portfolio acts as a hedge against these higher market energy prices, but it is a challenge for us to continue keeping our rates low. The next slide, one thing that we are able to do, and this is really part of where we're truly a partnership. WPPI is your customers. We represent about 75 to 80% of your customers' power bill. And the rest is distribution costs. That's the piece for Menasha. So we truly is a partnership when you look at what does the end-use customer pay for power supply. It's a combination of WPPI's wholesale power cost, transmission costs, which is built into our rates, and then your distribution cost component. Of our rates, about 15 to 16% is transmission, and then the balance is power supply. And then your piece is 20 to 25%. Is a distribution cost component. So it really is a partnership from your customer standpoint. This chart, we tried to depict how do our members as a whole, the WPPI community members as a whole, compare to all other utility services in customers in the state of Wisconsin. We'll start with the middle graph is the residential service. What that's showing you, the green bar, or the green piece of that bar, is the area where the total load or customers connected and served is served at a higher rate than the WPPI communities. And the purple piece is the percentage of customers that are served at a rate that is lower than the member communities. So you can see just visually that for the most part, a vast majority of customers are served at a higher cost than what the WPPI member communities serve at. So if you take a look at the middle bar, the residential one, I actually had a notes page, that's what caught you, yeah. So that middle bar is the residential piece. So 91% of residential customers in the state of Wisconsin are served at rates higher than what our member communities provide service for. So that speaks very highly of our combined cost, average cost to customers. Another perspective is only 3% of customers are served at a lower cost. When you look at the industrial, the C&I rate, basically, you have 24% of the C&I load in the state pays less than the member communities. I can tell you that Menasha, because of your concentration of industrial load, has one of the lowest. If you split Menasha out on that C&I graph, you would be down into that purple level pretty far. Because of your high load factor, which is basically your 24-hour, 24/7 demand that you have from some of your large industrial customers, that brings your overall average cost down to being one of the most competitive in the state. And so that, again, you get the benefit of WPPI, you also get the benefit of your high concentration of industrial load, which results in your customers paying a lower overall cost than most any other customers. So from a business standpoint, we do a lot of planning, year to year and longer term. We just stepped into the first year of our next 5-year business plan. This was developed after meeting with, we had 11 regional meetings where we brought member communities in to talk to us about what's important to them, where do they see WPPI fitting into, supporting what you want to do locally. And then we took all that information back and put it into a 5-year business plan. One of the things that we formally adopted in this business plan is a sustainability goal. We have an emission reduction target of 100% by 2050. Again, we do need to balance the drive to bring our emissions rate down with the cost and the reliability aspect of it. You probably heard going into this summer, there was some concerns that there could possibly be rolling blackouts in the MISO, the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. That's the transmission market within a 13-state region. There was discussion about a potential for rolling blackouts. Fortunately, that did not happen. Part of the reason that that was contemplated was demand was up and baseload resources had come offline, and so that was a concern. So reliability is always a concern. But we balance reliability with sustainability and affordability. But we adopted a 100% reduction target by 2050. We all admit most every utility in this region has adopted a similar goal. The Governor's Task Force on Climate Change, I sat on that task force, and the task force adopted a goal of 100% by 2050. But everyone recognizes we need technological advances beyond what's available today to do that economically. From a technical standpoint, it's possible, but from an economic standpoint right now, if we were to jump from where we're at today to 100% emissions-free, the economics would not be very favorable, and your customers definitely would be, you'd be hearing from your customers a lot. And so we want to drive all three of those forward. We project that by 2030, we'll be at 50 to 60% reduction, and we'll grow even more by 2035. We have interest in 3 different coal units. All three of those are targeted to be converted to natural gas by 2035, which will reduce our emissions portfolio profile that much more. Natural gas is about 50% of the emissions that you would get from coal, so we'll see an immediate reduction in 2035 as well. I think for us and every utility, it's that last 10 to 20%. Going from 80% to 100%, that'll be the most challenging, and that's where we'll need some technological advances. We know that engineers and those that are looking at how to get that last 20% out of the system are looking for ways to bring that about. Batteries are going to play a part of that, long-term storage, enhanced perhaps CO2 carbon capture and sequestration could be a part of that. And energy efficiency on the consumer, on the demand side, will play a part of that. But we believe that we'll be able to get there. That's not going to stop us from continuing to go down the path that we're headed. And we definitely look for, it's a constant discussion between us and our members. So if you get a chance to take a look at our business plan, please do. If you ever have any questions about it, please feel free to ask about it. One of the things that we focus on, and we did in our business plan, is the fact that, we talk about being member-led, member-governed. So we have a 51-member board of directors. You have a representative on that board, just like every other member. Melanie sits on our board. Melanie also sits on our Finance and Audit Committee, and she sits on our Rates and Services Advisory Group, which sets the wholesale rate, makes the recommendation on what our wholesale rate's going to be to the board that is approved in December. Paula Mowers on our Member Services Advisory Group. That's the group that has a lot of oversight over the services that we provide, whether it's the North Star billing system or our energy service managers or our energy efficiency programs. Those all go through our Member Services Advisory Group. And I know, from this level, Commissioner Mark Alwart participates in a number of our meetings in the past. We definitely appreciate when we see that. Mayor has gone with us to Washington, D.C. To meet with our congressional delegation. When we talk about lobbying is not a bad thing. Lobbying is educating our elected officials about, how policy affects our utilities and therefore affects the customers that we serve. And I can tell you the most effective group of lobbyists is a room full of mayors. And I've always appreciated when Mayor Merkes and others take the time to go to DC and sit down with our congressional delegation. They want to hear from the mayors more than anybody else because you represent the same people they represent and are most likely closer to those people. And so when you tell them that a policy could negatively impact Menasha utilities, they're going to listen to that. Obviously, we'll follow up and give more detail, but that member control and member participation is critical for WPPI. And so from our standpoint, we look for opportunities for engagement. If you want to flip to the next slide. We look for multiple opportunities for our members to be engaged with WPPI. This is just for the last, several months of the year. Our annual meeting is coming up. It's actually next week. I expect I'll see some of you there. We have an orientation to WPPI that we'll spend about 3 to 4 hours going into a lot more detail than what I'm able to do here tonight. But go into detail about our power supply portfolio, our services that we provide, our wholesale rates, our finances, so that you get a better understanding of how WPPI functions and how we exist to serve you as a member utility. Then we have our chief executive breakfast. That's in part of the league, the Wisconsin Municipal League's annual meeting. And then next year, February 27th, is the APPA Legislative Rally. And that's, again, another opportunity for us to touch base with our congressional delegation, bring people in from our member communities to sit down with the elected representatives in D.C. That's the extent of my prepared remarks, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Is this going to work?
Seems like it is, and we are taping now, so.
Okay. Oh, no, I can't say what I wanted to say.
Sure you can.
So anyways, I'm sure you remember me from
Absolutely. Yep.
And actually last week, Alderman Hammond, myself, and the mayor, we we're checking out the new bridge updates and some of the other things. And I wanted to take Alderman Hammond down to the dam. And I can't even look at the dam because every time I see it as wasted energy. And I know that you indicated you did a small update report and it didn't seem feasible and all that. And I think that's where we're making a mistake in this country. You talk about renewable energy and sustainability, but still we're still overly dependent on coal. We're overly dependent on fossil fuels and even worse, nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is okay, but we still haven't solved a lot of those issues as far as, what to do with the spent water, fuel, whatever. So since then, we've had the Build Back Better plan, and we've had the infrastructure bill law.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, if the president and the governor are looking at renewables as a solution, why are we not trying our darndest to find probably in my opinion, the least polluted type of energy to be provided to our citizens, and that is hydro. And people have this misconception about hydro because of the Hoover Dam. They think you have to have something, 40 stories tall and that, and you don't. You only need like 3 feet of water, and you just need flow is what you need. And we have flow, and it's constant, even in the wintertime. So I understand that a lot of times it's all about dollars. Well, it's not cost effective. Back several years ago, when I lost my election, and I was in the gallery, and they were talking about this steam plant, I went up to our director and said, why don't we look at hydro? And he laughed at me and said, oh, there's no money in that. We won't make no money. Well, $42 million in debt later, we lost money on that ridiculous project. I think in some ways that's how I got reelected, because of my position on that steam utility. And I'm going to continue until the day I die to push for hydro on the Fox River. I mean, we have constant flow here, both in Neenah and in Menasha. And I think we're making a mistake by not looking at that as more long-term. You're just talking about 2050 and trying to be 100% sustainable or whatever, or using
Emissions-free.
clean energy.
Sure.
Well, why don't we get on the ball with that? We have a location here in Menasha. I mean, you only have to stand there and just see that flow, just shooting out so hard, and I don't understand why we haven't made that investment in our communities. And I always felt, I was around on day one when WPPI was formed with the city of Menasha. We were one of your first
Correct. Yep.
customers, along with Kokona. And you've helped us also in the past with bailing us out with the steam utility. But also we gave up a lot too. We gave up those power lines. At the time, the value was $5 million. My guess would be they're probably worth $25 million today. So anyways, can you update us? I know that was lengthy. I had to get that out because it
I
bothers
saw a
me so
question in
much.
there, so I'll respond to the question that you want me
Just,
to.
where are you guys with hydro? Everybody's talking about natural gas.
Yeah.
And look what's happening, and especially with Russia and the war. Everyone's talking about solar all the time. Well, those aren't going to solve our problem. Those have a lot of costs too.
Yeah.
They're cheaper now to provide benefit, but I'm looking more long-term and something that's free, that
From our standpoint, it is the economics today that do not allow for us to move forward with that kind of project. And it's not just a few dollars, it's multiple dollars above other options that we could bring onto the system. The second issue is we don't have a need right now to add additional resources to our portfolio. We're pretty well set for the next probably 4 to 6 years. And then we'll start to see some possibilities for adding resources.
So wouldn't this be a good time with the infrastructure bill?
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
looked at the,
part of that is all about
Yeah.
going more green and being more sustainable, and we're not doing anything other than paving roads or
yeah,
whatever.
the Inflation Reduction Act is really where the change came in, and that allows for direct tax credit payments to tax exempt entities, so we can own, it's solar and wind, it's not hydro. And so we can own those types of resources directly with our cost structure versus entering into a long-term contract with an investor-owned utility, which would be at a higher cost than what we could own and operate those resources for. So we, again, don't have any need for the next few years, and then we'll start to look at how can we add in and layer in some additional renewable resources. I can tell you that I would not say never to hydro on the Fox. Adding hydro sometime in the future very well could fit within our portfolio. It just doesn't fit within the next 10 years. And that may be a good thing from the standpoint of as technology improves, and we've seen that over the last 20 years with the facilities that you can build from a run-of-river hydro facilities, they are becoming more efficient. And at some point, it may very well fit within our portfolio. We're not going to we got ahead of a lot of the utilities in the industry with renewables about 15 years ago, and we're paying a significantly higher price. We have several contracts that are probably 3 times higher than that same resource would be today if we did it today. Obviously, we got the benefit of having it in our portfolio, but our customers paid higher costs than what they would have otherwise paid compared to market at the time and compared to resources that we could bring online today. So I would never tell you it never will fit into our portfolio. It's probably more of a matter of timing. And right now, the time is not right and the economics are not right for us to move forward with adding a hydro facility that we would own and operate in our portfolio. We do have hydro in our portfolio. It's not a lot, but we do have hydro. The Kaukauna River hydros, Black River Falls all have legacy hydro facilities that, we're paying for some of that output. So we are doing what we can in that area, but to add additional hydro at this time really would not make economic sense for WPPI. But I definitely would never say never, and we'll keep an eye on it. We take a look at it every so often. So, yep.
Alderman Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Peters, I just want to say thank you for being here. And I just have 2 questions. You had made mention of the importance of lobbying at the federal level, and you had made mention of serving on the task force by Governor Evers pertaining to climate change. What are things at a municipal level that we can do when different political administrations come in and out? Right now, we have some of the most historic legislation pertaining to climate. You had mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and things of that nature, which will have longevity towards addressing the climate crisis. But what are things that we can do as a city, and what are good projects that a sustainability committee could work on? And my second part of that question is, what is WPPI going to do with their commitment to being carbon neutral by 2050 if the political tide changes, which it will probably numerous times by the time you reach that goal, and if administrations come in and out with varying opinions on the climate crisis and renewable energy?
Yeah, good questions. I'll take the second one first. We're apolitical as an organization, and the decisions that we've made in the last 10 years have not been based on changes in DC or the policy at the federal level. They've been based on economics and how does that resource fit into our portfolio, into our needs. The last 2 resources we added were both renewable resources. We added 130 megawatts of wind in 2017, and then we added Point Beach Solar that came online last year. The policy that will help us going forward is the fact that we can now own them directly at a lower cost. And so that's going to open up the field a little bit more for us. It also gives us the full length of the project. Point Beach Solar and the Bishop Hill Wind project that we added, those are 20-year purchase power agreements, which is typical in the renewable area. Those assets will last for 30 years, 25 to 30 years. So we don't get the residual value that oftentimes either gets resold to somebody else or repowered, and we don't get the benefit of that either. So that's probably the biggest policy change. Going forward, I doubt you're going to see any policies that would throw us off our path to driving towards 100% emissions by 2050. Utilities are making decisions to retire coal plants based on the economics. And so we're part of that discussion with our 3 coal units that are going to convert to natural gas. Obviously, by 2050, you're going to have to find something to replace those natural gas plants if you're truly going to be emissions-free, or you could be carbon neutral, where you still have the natural gas, which most engineers in the industry believe you'll still have to have some natural gas on the system, but you'll have offsets. You'll do something to offset the carbon output, or perhaps you'll have sequestration at that time where you can capture the emissions and then sequester it. But the challenge that we have is being able to ramp up and ramp down to match the changes in the renewable energy side. The first part of your question, what can our member municipalities do? I can tell you what some of our members have done. I think you've done some of this as well. You can, make sure that all of your city buildings are renewable. You can put rooftop solar on your city facilities. We actually have some grant dollars available to help members do that. We've had some members that have looked at what it would take to, we have renewable energy credits that members can purchase and offset and get a higher percentage of renewable energy recognized in their portfolio. We have some members that have looked at going 100% for their cities, and they've done that for all the city purchases. We've had some that have considered what would it take to do 100% for the city, all the purchase power that you make. That's a bigger lift, but it's definitely something we can take a look at. We've done a couple community solar gardens. The challenge that we have there is as regulated utilities, the model that we put forward back when we did that program, it's now been 5 years, would have been a guaranteed payback to the customers that bought panels in 15 years, and then they would have a value going forward beyond their initial investment. The Public Service Commission changed our model and approved a model that basically we can't tell the customer what the payback is, and so it's a little more challenging to get customers to buy into those programs. We've had members that have pushed renewable energy credits pretty aggressively with their customers. We've got a couple of member communities that are in the top 10 in the country of getting their customers to subscribe to renewable energy credits and make the portfolio more green for that member community. Energy efficiency programs, we have a lot available in the area of energy efficiency. The Energy Service Manager, Lisa Miatke, is, you're probably your best expert to reach out to and look at what you can do there. I know you can, work with her in your sustainability committee and help identify some projects that would benefit the city from a lower usage standpoint, which, helps from a renewable standpoint. So there's a lot that can be done. There are limits. You can't just go build a 50 megawatt solar to serve the city. But there are things that our member communities can do, and we're really, whatever we can do to help you meet your local sustainability goals within the rules and the structure that WPPI has, we're definitely willing to take a look at that.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions for Mike? No? Well, thanks so much for coming tonight,
Mayor,
Mike.
thank you very much. Hopefully I'll be able to see you next week at our annual meeting.
I am not planning on coming to the annual meeting, but maybe one of the other ones in the future.
Absolutely. Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
Appreciate the time.
We'll move on to the minutes and communications then. We have the minutes and communications for the week. Do we have a motion? Alderman Severnick?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd like for us to receive minutes A through I and communications J through O.
Is there a second? Second. So motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Alderman Repella.
Thank you. Nice speakers here. On the Housing Authority, I was just perusing that, and one of the ones that was a little disappointing was a house on the island that's like, let's see here, house on the island is assessed for $341,000, and we were able to give them almost $10,000 to fix up their kitchen. You know, I was kind of on the housing committee or whatever at the ground floor, and one of the things that we really wanted to try to work on is fixing up some of these lower priced houses that are around our city, and we've got plenty of them under, you know, probably $120,000. Those are the ones that I was really hoping that we would target and try to fix up. And granted, some of them might not be owner-owned, they might be rentals, but those are the houses that I think we need to fix up. If the house is worth $341,000, these people should have plenty enough money to fix up their own kitchen. And I realized it was, somehow it got in because there was, when you do the rubric, it somehow made it in, because I think of the age of the house. But I mean, it had almost a half an acre yard. And
Where are you reading this on the minutes, Alderman
What?
Repella? Is that in this minutes, or is it past minutes?
in general,
Okay, I was just
I
trying
looked
to
up
find
at
it
it.
on here.
I-
Okay.
So 341,000. So I just think we need to do a better job on that housing authority and getting the lower income houses to qualify and to give them the money to fix up. So that's all I got to say. So hopefully Sam and his housing authority was listening. I'm glad he was here. All right, thank you.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. Item M, under communications, the Fox Cities Housing Forum. There is a communication in the packet about this. However, the information provided doesn't tell us anything about who is putting on this forum. Director Schrader, could you tell us more about that?
Certainly. So Outagamie County did a housing study last year, and following that, they had basically their own kind of advisory task force on that housing study. They had reduced that task force to look at what to do with this housing forum, or with this housing study. So they actually looked to put on this housing forum. It is being sponsored by the Realtors Association, as well as the Fox Cities Economic Development Professionals and the Community Foundation. Certainly housing impacts us all, both from a livability as well as an economic standpoint. So certainly of interest to see kind of where this discussion and that larger regional housing study takes us.
Where can one find more information about those partners involved with this? And I know the steps I had to go through just to get to the Outagamie County involvement, but I didn't know about the other groups.
They're just sponsoring it, so I think the sponsorship would be at the forum. They would have their sponsorship.
Okay. And it's for the entire region, not just those cities in Outagamie County?
Yes, the entire region.
Thank you.
And Outagamie County's housing study did look at it from a regional standpoint, because obviously housing from one county line to the next in the Fox Cities certainly has little impact.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Item F is public comments. Is there anyone here to make a comment this evening? Oh, could you turn on the mic, please? Yeah, oh, I suppose I could have done the same too. Huh? Perfect.
Hey,
Thanks.
hello, everybody. Kyle Coonan, 705 First Street. Just want to come and speak on behalf of being positive towards the Sustainability Committee being voted yes. And I hope that you all consider it and have a good discussion on it tonight. So thank you for letting me speak.
Sandra Bill Taylor, 545 Broad Street. First, I'd like to thank Alderman Sevenick for his questions regarding the PPI presentation. I know there are other members of the community who have all long wondered why we don't look into hydro. Kaukauna Utilities, this is the Sustainability Board, when they first met this year, I brought data of how much energy Kaukauna Utility generates off of their hydro. And that's something that we should seriously be looking at, but apparently cost. They don't even want to consider, which is really unfortunate. But I want to thank Mr. Sevenick for asking. Under communications, there was a communication from a resident regarding Esty and the neighborhood. I had hoped that maybe someone from that firm would come and address the situation, but they're not here. He brought up very good points, but it's not just that area where the Alliance is. Appleton Street has been taken over by Alliance with their semis. They are stacking crates on the road since the road has been closed by the railroad. People in the neighborhood are experiencing fallout from the painting. Red stuff is floating around. We're Sunoco. Their burned out building that's been there for 50 years. There seems to be this thing that we're afraid to say anything that these industries are going to leave. We have to get over that. We have to be able to communicate with these industries and say, you have to do something because you're ruining our neighborhoods. And just to say hands off because they're a big corporation and they provide a lot of jobs isn't the answer, and something needs to be done. And this gives the impression for all the little guys that they can get away with it too, that they don't have to clean up their messes, and we have no code enforcement, which is just a shame. And you can really see it. Since Joe Paulzine has left, this city has very much deteriorated because no one knows where to go. And nothing is being done. And it's really irritating. And I hope that we do something diligent. We need to get this back in the police department. This is an enforcement issue. This is not let me hold your hand and educate you on what to do. Why have a municipal code if we don't follow it? I'm really gotten fed up. Excuse me for trying to stay calm. And I guess it's just something that's been going on and on and on. And we get a reputation in the Fox Valley, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if we don't do something about it, who really wants to live here? Who wants to buy a house when there's junk all over the neighborhood? And you just get shut down when you try to ask about it, and if you ask about it, then you're the bad guy. Okay, then, under action items, you have appointment of a city attorney. I don't know how many people you interviewed. I'm just kind of disappointed that this person doesn't have any municipal law experience. I would actually like to wait and see if someone else comes forward. I mean, honestly, just from my years of being up here, I may know a little bit more about TIF law, annexations, municipal boundary agreements, and numerous things that someone who has never done anything with a municipality will know. And perhaps we just keep Mr. Walsh on a little longer. The other thing is, I don't know what wage has been offered. I'm assuming it's relative to what Pam Captain was making, which was like $117,000. But that was her base wage. Then you add in Benny's and everything else that goes with it, and the budget last year was a little over 180,000. When I pulled up Fox Crossing's budget, and they had for legal counsel, general legal counsel, 55,000, legal counsel for labor, 15,000, for a total of $70,000. We never even contemplated looking at an outside firm. Never. And I brought this up when you first went into it. And I think it's a disservice to the community that you don't do that. You have no hesitation to look for an outside firm when it comes to the community development block grant and having someone run that. So we're being very hypocritical in some of these areas. Speaking of which, I'm not opposed to having someone do that because it's taking away, currently our building inspector is doing community development block grants, which is another thing that doesn't make sense because you have an enforcement position on one end and then you're giving away money on the other end, giving grants away for the housing. It should have never been a combined position. Just like the attorney HR should have never been a combined position. So we're finally getting on the right track of splitting these, but we're going about it all wrong. And I'm just going to wrap up by saying, I know there's more things I wanted to speak on, but there's also the joint powers agreement. The ordinance relating to the undesignated fund balance, we're changing it from 6% back to 10%. Why don't we aim for 15? I mean, interest rates are going up, bonding is going to be harder to get. Why not move it right to 15 right away? And of course, I have to talk about the Sustainability Board. I'm the one that probably first brought this to your attention. If you think it's appropriate that you have people or special interest group or anyone else that does not reside in the city of Menasha to be on the Sustainability Board, well, then we open it up to all of our boards and committees. That a guy who owns 20 properties, rental properties, because 72% of the district I live in is rental. So some slumlord from Milwaukee can be on one of our boards, but somebody who lives here can't. You know, I mean, you can open it up to that, or some small-time something or other. These belong to residents. City of Neenah specifically has residents in their language to be on the Sustainability Board. Even if you own something, if it's so great, if Menasha's so great, live here. That's kind of how I'm getting to be right now. So, and the covered bridge, what is the cost difference between the concrete bridge and the bridge that's being proposed that looks like a railroad trestle? It's really ugly. I know you're going into closed session, so I had to cram everything in. Thank you.
Do you have something too, Tim?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Tim Jacobson, 732 Tall, Paris Street. I know I've been here and spoke of this several times, but I wasn't even going to come tonight, and then I saw this item from the Harrison Sanitary Connection fee, and right away I could smell a skunk in the wood pile. We've talked about this many times before. The City of Menasha residents put the backbone in for that east sewer, and the only ones that are benefiting from it and trying to control it are the ones that rip this city off with their border agreement, voiding it. We need to stand up, get some rocks in our pockets, and let them know that we're in control. Their sewage comes through our city. Our residents get backed up basements because their stuff takes room in our pipes. And to me, that's wrong. The other thing, you know, with all the development coming on in all the surrounding towns, that the sewage plant is going to be looking to expand. And they're going to want to expand into that park because there's nothing there for them to pay for. I say, tell them to go to Neenah. get their land from Nina. They can use eminent domain. They can take the houses and make their sludge ponds in Nina. Personally, I'm sick and tired of being the region's toilet. And probably a lot of Menasha people are. If they don't want to go to Nina, there's one other solution that we can do, and that's funds in lieu of taxes. On the south side of the branch of that river, Nina's got millions on millions on millions of dollars in development. On the north side of the branch of that river, Menasha has, like I said, the region's toilet. 1993, when the Northern Plains had massive flooding, and that sewage plant was geyser coming out of there. We almost lost the whole plant. And we were sandbagging along that river for the houses, to protect the houses. And we had as much coming from behind us from that sewage plant as the water coming up from the river. And when it was all over, not one of those participating communities was down here to help us clean up. Not one. My proposal would be, you got the town of Nina, the city of Nina, Fox Crossing, and Harrison. They should each be paying the city of Menasha the equivalent of $500,000 a year in lieu of taxes to be equal to the millions of dollars of development on that same body of water in the city of Nina. Otherwise, let them get their expansion from Nina also. There's a sports analogy. If you're a pitcher in the major leagues, there's two pitches you learn. The first one is down and away. You get that guy leaning over the plate. The next one is a high fastball right under his chin. You let him know who's in charge. He doesn't want to do what he's thinking. The other thing I had in mind, and it's been just floating around in my empty head for a while, lighter side. I was just wondering, has there ever been any consideration on the mayor, and maybe get the mayor and the police chief, Chris from the school, and maybe a class president together and come up with some form of allowing jaywalking to be legal during the school year around the high school and Color Stadium? Have fun with life as much as we have with all these other things. And in closing, I'd like to thank Tim Stajka for all the years that I've worked with him and watched his department grow and how much it really has benefited the community. And we're going to miss him. Thank you.
Is there anyone else this evening? Seeing no one else, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to have some of the items, any items separated tonight? Alderman Sevenick?
Mayor, I want to ask my colleagues, is there anything you want separated? If not, I think at this moment, because we took all these matters up in the Board of Public Works and they were all unanimous, and the decisions in the Nina Menasha Fire Rescue between both communities were unanimous, that if anyone wants these separated, we can do that, but otherwise, for the first time, I think I would like to approve the consent agenda items. I see no one, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 at this time.
There's a motion and a second for the consent agenda this evening, and I'll read them off just so the public knows what they were. The common council minutes from August 15th, the Board of Public Works recommendations for Community First Fox Cities Marathon on September 18th, a change order for Northeast Asphalt in the amount of $1,942, a payment to Northeast Asphalt in the amount of $19,479, and another payment to Northeast Asphalt for the amount of $192,878.34. The Nina Menasha Joint Finance and Personnel Committee recommendations to approve spending $35,195.35 to repair engine 32, and to approve the 2023 cost distribution formula for the Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue. Neenah's share at 60.34% and Menasha's share at 39.66%. And with all of that, if we could have a roll call vote then, please.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item I is action items. The first item is the accounts payable and payroll for August 12th through September 1st. Do we have a motion? Alderman Nichols, you've got your light hidden right behind someone else's. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve the accounts payable and payroll for the term of August 12th through September 1st, 2022, in the amount of $3,257,441.96.
Is there a second? So motion and a second. Discussion. Alderman Rapella.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it was on page 7, but there was a sculpture, we received $500. Was it donated or was it private from the city? How did we get that $500, Jennifer?
That was a donation.
Okay, all right, a donation, got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, earlier, Ms. Taylor had a question on one of them. Were you able to find that particular one? And
I did find it now. I did pass it along to the Public Works Director. There was, I believe, a drainage issue on Brighton Drive. I don't know if you had more.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to this one. We actually had noticed that there was 6 inches of standing water continually, obviously isolated rain events, but recurring at the end of Brighton Drive. So we put in a storm sewer to capture that water and get it out to the lake. So it was a directional bore by a contractor to get that water off of the road, so the road didn't continue to deteriorate. And it actually did back up into yards as well.
right, okay, thank you. Also, too, I've noticed that there's been a lot of credit card use. If you've noticed, there's probably double of what we've seen in the past, so. And some of those, I'm not even sure what they are, but they're so small that I can always just address those with Jennifer.
Any other questions? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item 2 is the liquor license application. Do we have a motion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move to approve the Class A and Class A liquor license for El Kiosquito for the premise located at 714 Appleton Road, Suite C, Menasha, for the remainder of the 2022 through 23 licensing year.
Is a motion and a second? Any discussion? I think I know what Rosita is going to say. Alderman Eisner?
May I please abstain from voting since I hold a liquor license?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carries 6-1.
Item 3 is the City of Menasha CDBG Housing Rehabilitation Program. Do we have discussion or a motion? Director Schrader, would you like to?
Yeah, I can certainly provide some background on this. So for some time, or obviously since the City of Menasha brought in a in-house residential building inspector, at that same time, we also brought in a housing specialist tied to that position. That was in the summer of 2017. So since that time, again, we had previously outsourced the CDBG program. There was no one in-house to do that. There was not a lot of good documentation that was provided, as well as our manuals and everything were really out of date. The Housing Authority hadn't met in several years. So basically, once that new position was brought in, our building inspector / housing specialist, Allison Humsky, she did do a great job of kind of getting that program back on track. But with that said, it is a very, very cumbersome project and program to implement from an RLF and federal funding standpoint. There's a lot of rules, regulations that go along with that, in addition of just kind of the time it takes to actually educate each applicant that wants to use this funding of the steps that they need to take to use this funding. As noted within the memo, staff has had some conversations in recent months with some other regional entities that provide this type of service. One, just to ask, is there anything that the city of Menasha is missing that we can better provide this service, more streamline the service in our process? And secondly, what does an outsourcing agency look like moving forward? So there were a couple that said absolutely not, they would not even entertain this. And one of them did reach out and recommended we reach out to this BG and Associates to kind of get their consideration. So basically, we did receive a proposal from them. How that would work is most of the service fee, if you will, would come directly out of the CDBG program fund. So there would not be any direct impact to the general fund dollars in that matter. They would only get paid their service fee, their administration fee at the time of actually a loan closing. So, and that fee would be 15% of the actual project. On the side of that, there would be several inspections that do need to happen. Again, this is a standard practice that in order to release the funds, they have to go through a housing quality standard inspection, lead and asbestos inspections. Those types of fundings are project costs would be upfront with the CDBG program. However, at the time, if a loan was actually approved, it would be wrapped up into that loan and sit with that property through that time. So we do have, again, several $100,000. I believe it's just under $250,000 of funding available today, and well over $1 million still out in loans within this community. So we do have quite a bit of funding. Allison Humsky, again, we did bring this forward to the Housing Authority at the last meeting, and she had mentioned that roughly probably 30 hours a week, or excuse me, a month, not a week, go to administering this program, which again is basically almost a full week a month, and we have not approved an application in some time. So that's just kind of to show how much time actually goes into this without actually implementing any of these projects. So that's the second thing, is that we do believe an actual professional services can provide a better communication and resources, because they have the expertise and more staff to do that on a daily basis. So as mentioned, we did bring this forward to the Housing Authority at their August meeting to have a quick discussion about this. There was overwhelming support from them to bring this concept forward to the Common Council. So attached with this is, again, the proposal, and staff does recommend the Common Council accept the proposal by BG&A, or BG and Associates, to administer the City of Menasha CDBG RLF Housing Rehabilitation Program, and direct staff to execute a contract for this professional service as outlined in this proposal. Again, we don't want this to seem as if this staff is rushing through this at all. So if we do need to take more time or have additional questions, we can certainly do that. As noted, staff did reach out to several regional reps. Several said no, as well as BG&A are fairly local, as they are out of Bear Creek, just up the road. So that's staff's recommendation.
Dr. Schrader, do you want to explain what our typical CDBG loan might look like, who's eligible, and kind of how that process had worked in the past, just so they know who these loans are going to typically?
Yeah, so CDBG is for low to moderate income folks. And what oftentimes happen is they may qualify for the program, they need a new roof. And our building inspector currently, who is certified as a housing quality inspector, would have to go through and inspect the entire house. The entire house, any other safety issues do need to get brought up to code. They do need to go out and do basically a report of everything that's needed. And then similar to a public works project, they actually have to go out for bid, get several bids. And then there's lots of documentation that needs to get executed as part of that loan. So basically, from this standpoint, what we'd be looking at is having this program be, basically the communication be directly with them. Currently, we do have annual audits, as well as, obviously set an annual budget and look at that and bring that forward to the common council. So the thought process would be that the building inspector would still kind of manage this service and still kind of oversee it and work with not only BG and Associates, but also Jennifer Sassman, I can't talk tonight, to make sure this is laid out and brought forward and according.
So typically, these loans are 0% interest loans that would be paid back when the house is sold, and there would be no payments until that point. And
Correct.
For low-income residents, they kind of would match up with our strong neighborhood program that would be for people that would not meet those income eligibility requirements, would then have to move into those other programs.
Correct, and if they have, let's say they refinance their house, and we have it's recorded as a mortgage, we have to review subordinations, payoffs, basically everything as if that was a mortgage on that property. So still a lot of time that we would still be assuming in that aspect as well, because that would not be outsourced. We would handle that in-house still. But yes, you are correct.
So with that, Alderman Sedgwick.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I think we went backwards with this, or I don't think it should have came directly to the council. I think it should have went either to administration or personnel committee, because we are changing the work habits of an individual. Although I'm kind of wondering if it wasn't just dumped on her because of her qualifications, because I know that in past years, there was a individual that used to do these for the city of Menasha. And I'm assuming she's retired now and no longer doing that kind of work. I know, I've seen the fees, and you did mention the 15%, but I still don't really, how something like this can escape us in fees and dollar amounts. I see their schedule costs and stuff like that, and that could just snowball, and really, that's something I had concern with. I do see that they do have some good references, and they are working with other communities. Do they have a home office, or is this a actual commercial operations somewhere? Because I do not know the exact answer, but I would assume it likely is all remote. Several of their inspectors, again, because of the region that they supply, and kind of are doing inspections at these houses, that they're all kind of remote in that aspect. Okay. The only other thing is, and it has only partly to do with this, is it seems like we are contracting everything lately here at City Hall. So.
Alderman Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question for you regarding the Housing Authority meeting. When we were having the conversations as a group, you were talking about approximately 30 hours a week is allocated to case management, these calls, kind of doing the facilitation of some of these things. With that time saved for that staff member, what would they be able to do otherwise by allocating this role and going into this agreement?
Yeah, certainly. That's a great question. So this individual, one, having a building inspector do this program is unprecedented. I do not know of any other place that has that. And looking back at the last several years from a housing standpoint, typically our average had been roughly around 17 homes per year. Last year, we had 28 new homes constructed, and this year we already have 19 homes new constructed. So again, there's a huge uptick in new housing and permits being issued. In addition, we did switch, or basically our commercial inspection provider that outsourced that did terminate our contract several years ago. And Allison has kind of taken the lead of also managing now that aspect of commercial building permits. So basically, the paperwork that goes along with that because of just the process that we have in place. And we don't have any type of building software permitting software. So again, it's a lot of manual in-house tasks that fall onto the current building inspector. So still plenty of time to, again, maybe speed up permit reviews, inspections, go on additional inspections versus just the bare minimum, and provide a better service to the city of Menasha.
Thank you. And I would feel comfortable making a motion, but I do see another elder person has their light on. So I don't know if you have something you want to say first.
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor. Being one of an elementary teacher for 25 years, and it was a salary position. I knew that ahead of time. I would put in sometimes 55 to 65 hours a week, and I knew that I only needed to be there 40, but I did work those extra hours almost weekly. I knew that going in. So Allison, and I'm just saying this, I mean, she has to spend an extra 30 hours per month, so that's probably an extra 7 hours a week doing some of these details. So that would put her at 47 hours a week. And routinely, I worked 55 to 65 hours a week. So I think it's a good program. But what I'm asking or considering is, will Allison, since she knew this was part of her job or whatever, is she going to be a pay cut because of her responsibilities have been lessened? Is that something that we need to vote on?
I think that's a feasible question. However, I don't think it's feasible to look at your comparison in today's market. With unemployment as low as it is, the city of Menasha is hugely lucky that we have a residential building inspector that is certified across the board, from building, commercial, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, across the board. Most municipalities would have to have multiple staff on board to be doing that same amount of work. So I think we're very fortunate to have her. Again, I'm always cautious about how we look and treat employees, because she could probably find a job anywhere, but we do want her to stay here because I think she's providing a good service. And obviously, we want to work on that longevity and continue, the work that she has been provided. And in addition, I think, later on in personnel, we're talking about some other salary adjustments and possibly a salary study, coming up. These salaries are changing drastically. And I do believe, as I stated, her position, having the housing specialist addition to that is very unique. But if you actually look at what she's currently making compared to those other building inspectors, it's probably very similar. So again, I would not look at decreasing that salary staff at all.
Okay, but her job has gotten decreased. Her position, because we're going to go for that company from Clintonville.
But if it currently takes us 2 weeks to provide a building inspection review because we're backlogged, right? and we can now increase that inspection or that review to a week or less than a week, and provide more more permits, to be able to get those out and provide a better service to the city of Menasha. Again, her time will be filled. It's not just 30 hours that get pulled from thin air. She doesn't have the 30 hours now to be working on the CDBG program, is what we're saying. But she has to make the 30 hours.
Right.
Just like we all do, and just like you did as a teacher. You
Correct.
have to find the time, obviously, for the task at hand, but that does not mean, that we still don't have other things that are backlogged or things that we're behind in, that need our attention.
Okay, one more question, Sam. With this CDBG program, that company that we're considering hiring, is that going to be like a year contract, a 6-month contract? What type of length of contract would we expect from them so we could see that their progress and we could eliminate them or whatever, just consider what what they're doing?
Yeah, similar to a lot of the contracts we do, we would probably do an annual or a 12-month contract with an auto renewal, but also put clauses in there to have termination ability. Oftentimes those are 60-day written notice termination by either party, so that's certainly something that would be addressed in that contract.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Stefanik.
Thank you, Mayor. I kind of want to help address Randy's issue because originally, on the surface, I felt the same way, except for I want to kind of help to explain to him that I believe that this job was basically dumped on her because we lost somebody. So it wasn't really part of her original responsibilities. So she actually, instead of getting a pay cut, she should have probably gotten a pay raise, okay? And then, but I saw what you saw too, and that Sam just explained our building inspections are up. She needs the time to do that. I think before you were here, we didn't have a building inspector. We contracting somebody, and it wasn't working out for us very well. And since she's come on, things have been running much smoother. So I'll just leave it at that, and now I'm in favor of doing this. But I do think that from time to time, we need to review this and make sure we're making the right decision.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the City of Menasha's CDBG RLF Housing Rehabilitation Program proposal.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Schrader, obviously, how a company provides service to the city of Menasha is important. I also believe it's important for us to know how that business provides service to our residents who will be their customers. So this company comes with great references from contractors and associates that they work with from villages and those sorts of folks. And although I don't expect someone who receives their services to provide a letter of reference, do we have any indication of how they work with customers and residents?
We did talk to, again, the Brown County regional manager for their program, their area program, and they did have good things to say. It's certainly a feasible question. And again, there were several references and recommendations within the proposal, but we can certainly make a couple more phone calls before we would execute anything to make sure, and if there's anything alarming, we can certainly bring that back.
Thank you. And assuming things move forward, how will we evaluate this service in the future, both from the City of Menasha's perspective and the end user?
Yeah, certainly. I think we would continue to do it as we have in the past, as far as a common council kind of educational standpoint, and have that be part of the community development budget presentation of just kind of sharing, what's working, what's not, the current fund balance, and if we see anything that, any major red flags or anything that needs to be adjusted, we can certainly then do that at that time and make that call.
Will anything from an evaluation standpoint be written into the terms of the contract?
That is not something we have thought of, but we can certainly look to do something of that nature to have an applicant survey or something added to that.
Okay, I think Alderman Rapella addressed the length of time as part of the contract, and that was one of my questions as well, but you indicated that would be addressed through the terms.
Seeing no further discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item 4 is the council's appointment of a city attorney. Alderman Grady.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd like to make the motion to approve the appointment of Margaret J. Struve to the position of the City of Attorney of Menasha, effective immediately.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. There has been some concern in the community that we probably looked at maybe, again, contracting this service out. And I want to say, as a council member, I did have a number of department heads beg me, not ask me, beg me to make sure that we didn't go that route, because they wanted to be able to have access to walk down the hall and get their question answered right away and not wait maybe to get a call later at the end of the day or something like that. So I think I might have scared the mayor and also the chair of the personnel committee a little bit when I start saying, well, if you guys don't put somebody on real quick, I may just appoint somebody. And all of a sudden, I get a call a couple days later from the mayor telling me of this highly qualified individual that is going to be hopefully a part of our community, that has shared a love of the city of Menasha, who actually lived in the city of Menasha. And you know where I stand with that. There's only one step better than that, and that's living in the city of Menasha. So, but I was wondering if maybe if Ted or the mayor or Alderman Nichols would want to share a little bit more than what I did, because I wasn't a part of that process, other than what I've read and heard from the mayor.
You were the chair, Ted. Would you like to?
Well, what I'd add to Alderman Sevenick's, with the interview with Margaret, very professional, very eager to learn, a little green, but she has the heart, and she is not afraid to get humiliated, learn things, and grow. And she has nothing but the best for the city of Menasha and our future. And I think she would be an awesome addition to the department heads. And as to going outside of not appointing a city attorney and having to farm this job out at $200-300 an hour, I think that may cost the city a lot more than her salary would be. And also, Alderman Sevenick, to your point too, to walk down the hall and ask questions and have them bounce things off of her, I think it's going to be more than beneficial. And I'm so happy that we can get this going and effective immediately with the budget season coming up.
Did you want to add anything, Alderman Nichols? No? Okay. So I think to echo what Alderman Grady said, she came highly recommended from her references and other people that knew her. She has a great level of education and some great litigation experience. She is very excited to learn new things and research new things. It was one of the things that really interested me. She was very honest that she didn't know everything, but she was very good about saying where she can find those things, who she needs to talk to find out about those things, and just her excitement about the community and the positive things she had to say about the community, I think were really nice as well. So we had,
I forgot who the chief was on that committee too.
we had a great interview. I don't know if you want to add anything, Chief, or not. I think we echoed most of it. He's saying that we caught most everything. So Alderman Rapella also has a question?
Yeah, a quick question. Thank you, Mayor. Attorney Captain was under contract for a 2 or 3 year term. Is our new city attorney going to just complete her contract term, or is she going to be given a new 3-year term? Just a question for
The term
anybody.
would typically run from April to April. And I
Okay,
would believe she'd be finishing out the term of Ms. Captain.
okay.
Hit me if I'm saying anything wrong, Attorney Walsh. I wouldn't do that. Okay. Normally, you would fill out the term of the last person that was there that had
Oh,
left.
all right.
So that's what this would do.
Okay.
2.5-ish years, right? She just got, no. She was up for appointment next year, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so next April would be the next appointment then.
Okay, so she's kind of on a 1-year semi-contract right now, till
Appointment, yes.
appointment.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
Randy stole that from me because I asked that question. But to add to that, just so that she realizes, I've been on the council on and off since 1981, and we have always reappointed our city attorney, so it's not like you're going to be here maybe 1 year and then, so it can happen, but it has not happened in the history of Menasha, so, but that answers my question then.
Do you have something else, Randy? No. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carries 8-0.
Ms. Struve is sitting in the back of the room. I don't know if you'd like to say anything, but other than that, welcome. Would you like to say anything or not? Thanks. One person coming, 2 people retiring. The next is a resolution recognizing Kurt Watinsky and Gail Sumi. I don't know if all of you have met some or both of them, but both of them are great resources at the league that are going to be sorely missed at their retirement. So I don't know if anyone would like to make the motion for the resolution. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I've met both of them and talked with each of them over the course of the past few years. So I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve Resolution 3222, a resolution in recognition of Kurt Watinsky and Gail Sumi from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, as introduced by Mayor Merkes.
Is there a second? Is there a second by Alderman Tom Grady? This is something that's being introduced throughout the state, by the way. This isn't something that I dreamed up. Any other discussion? Seeing none, if we, Becky?
I'll add that Mr. Watinsky was, I think over the years, he served as the connection between the League of Municipalities and the state legislature for most of his career, lobbying in the best interest of municipalities around the state. And Ms. Sumi joined the team as that communication link back to the municipalities, getting them more engaged in these efforts to connect with lawmakers, to have municipalities' voices heard at the legislative level, and to create those connections between communities themselves.
So with that, if we could get a roll call vote, please.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item N is public comments on any matter that was on the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Okay. Hold on just a second. Alderman Sevenick.
So tonight, are we going to go into committees and then into closed session? Or?
No, we're going to adjourn to a separate room, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Senator DeBille Taylor, 545 Broad Street. I'd just like to take a moment to thank Attorney James Walsh for his time to help the city out in this transition. And I appreciate the effort that he put forward and being able to be available for the city. I do think, I'm sure everything will work out fine with the attorney that was appointed tonight. Of course, it's more convenient to have someone right down the hall, but we aren't doing that in all of our departments. And I'm disappointed that the council didn't even consider requesting a proposal. That was all I was asking. Comparison. Right away, we're talking $200-300 an hour. Fox Crossing, I told you what they had budgeted. So, I mean, you don't really know without asking, and I think you had closed mind regarding this. But have a good night. Thank you.
Is there anyone else this evening? No? So with that, we can move to action item 01, and we do have a closed session scheduled tonight if someone would like to read the motion.
I can read it, but what room are we going?
We're just going to adjourn back there.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mayor. At this time, I'd like for us to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategies to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. This is concerning the intermunicipal agreement between the City of Menasha and Fox Crossing.
You want
I want I want number 2 added to this motion as well.
that we, okay, so could you
Also,
add?
that we would reconvene into open session to take action on items that may be pending.
Okay. I was just going to comment, but if he'd like it as part of the motion, he is the attorney, so we will follow his advice. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second from Alderman Schmidt. If we could have a roll call vote, please. Yes. No, we need a roll call vote on these. Oh,
This will work.
a roll call, yeah, just as long as it's a roll call.
Motion carries 8-0.
So we are going to move into closed session at this point. We are going to move to a separate room, and we will come back once we're done with our discussion. We're going to discuss legal strategy regarding the intermunicipal agreement between the City of Menasha and the Village of Fox Crossing. And we may take action when we come back, but we will come back to this room, well, hopefully in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, we did make a motion to adjourn, to reconvene into open session, and there is no action items that we need to discuss in open session. So at this point, I would accept a motion to adjourn the Common Council meeting. Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Mayor. Seeing that we have no further business with the Common Council today, I move that we adjourn.
So motion and a second. Just to note that we do have a workshop next meeting at 5:15. Put it on your calendar for the High Cliff Connection. All those in favor of adjournment? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Fox Cities campus assists the City of Menasha with video recordings of city meetings. Menasha residents and interested parties can get information about city meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. To express opinions about City of Menasha issues or these broadcasts, contact the mayor's office, 920-967-3608. Contact a city alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Or complete the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.